How do you reframe the way you think? You've got to really look into yourself.
So it was an aha moment for me to realize most of fashion companies are designed for people who are into fashion.
I thought, my God, we have to do that in the horses where nobody's done anything like that.
I'm Richard Gearhart.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart. You just heard some snippets from our show. We had amazing people on. Listen for the rest of it.
Ramping up your business? The time is near. You've given it heart. Now get it in gear. It's Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart.
I'm Richard Gearhart, founder of Gearhart Law, a full-service intellectual property law firm specializing in patents, trademarks, and copyrights.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart, not an attorney, but I do marketing for Gearhart Law, and I am the founder of Gear Media Studios, a content creation studio with the focus on podcasting.
Are the old rules of leadership dead? We'll find out soon because our guest today, Carolina Stokes, thinks so. She's a leadership strategist and author of AfterShock to 2030, as offering CEOs a bold new playbook to reinvent their organizations.
And it seems like we're really into the software today because our next guest, Anya Cheng, has taken AI to help dress men better. And boy, we love this.
I don't need any help. I dress just fine, thank you.
And then Jeffrey Sedler has taken data science to analyze racehorses and predict which racehorses are going to win.
That sounds very interesting to me. Welcome to Passage to Profit, the road to entrepreneurship, where we talk with celebrities and entrepreneurs about their business journeys. And now it's time for your exciting new business journey. 2 in 5 Americans, our business owners, are thinking about starting a business. And so we're going to be asking our panel, what was the biggest challenge you faced when turning your idea into a business, and how did you overcome it? So Jeffrey Sedler, what challenge did you face when turning your idea into a business?
Credibility and the ability to be persistent. I ended up with the nickname Dogzilla. That's my handle in the wagering world. But credibility in the racehorse business, it's full of baloney. I mean, it's just full of traditional stuff and a lot of jargon and a lot of misinformation and very little real science. And even the people who pretend to be scientific who tried to copy some of our stuff with cheap imitations. It's mostly garbage. But how do you separate yourself? It's a very small clique. They're very wealthy people who are often in it to win. They don't care about the money, and it's all relationships. And I was coming with no relationships and no money, and with a completely new approach that, by the way, would devalue the inventories of all the major players by de-emphasizing pedigree. So I was not welcome. So to develop credibility took a long time and a lot of money, and I finally got a break. And when I did with one of the big stables, we immediately had world champions and Kentucky Derby horses.
That's great. Anya Cheng, welcome to the show. What did it take to turn your idea into a business?
I think the biggest challenge is believing yourself. So when I started, I went on a startup competition. To practice a competition, I find 42 formal judges. So when I went on the competition, my pitch was perfect. I practiced 42 times with previous judges. But when the judges asked me the questions, I stunned. Because I wasn't trying to answer the question. All in my head, I was thinking, practice judge number 37 asked me this question and he told me the answer, which I put in appendix number 92. I didn't believe that I could answer the question. I always thinking someone else told me. So I think believing in yourself when you're starting a business is extremely important.
That's great. Caroline, welcome to the show. Caroline Stokes from AfterShock to 2030, new book out there, so definitely check it out. What about turning your business idea into a business?
Turning the idea into a business. I mean, we all have lots of ideas, right? But in my particular situation, this idea was actually probably created back in the 90s. But I had to go through so many different world experiences, living in different countries, working for different businesses, being in various different parts of the business to be able to get to the point where I was able to do what I'm doing today.
I guess the moral of the story, going from idea to business, it can be a challenge sometimes, and it's something that you just really have to stick with. Now it's time for our distinguished guest, Caroline Stokes. As I mentioned, she's the author of AfterShock to 2030, and her approach is that it's time to reinvent yourself as a leader. Caroline thinks because the world is changing so quickly that the old rules of leadership are dead, and that we have to reframe the way we think about leadership. So, very interesting topic. I'm really curious about how do you reframe the way you think?
How do you reframe the way you think? You've got to really look into yourself, which sounds very, very hard for most people that run very, very quickly all day long, and they're very, very focused on what they have to do to obviously make a living and to survive and to, pay the mortgage and do all of those things. And really, we need to rewire the way our brain works to be able to work and to live and to evolve in this era that we're living in. And when I say that, it sounds a bit strange, I have to admit. Just the words coming out of my mouth is like, what the heck am I saying? But when you take into consideration the changes in AI, you had a guest on quite recently. His name was, I think, James Baroud, and he was talking about agentic AI, and he was talking about the changes there. Just looking at that as a perspective, when you take into consideration how quickly that will happen, and this is before quantum computing makes everything even faster, we're looking at our world changing so much. Think about it. Past 2 years, we're now using ChatGPT or any other system really rapidly. And the way that we use it, it's actually changing us. It's changing our brain. It's changing our ability to communicate and to ideate and to problem solve. And in some instances, it's impacting our ability to be critical thinkers. So that's just one aspect. The other aspect in the book that I talk about is climate change. As you know, and as we know with regards to climate change, we're in this challenging situation where we're looking at the headlines, we're looking at the news. It doesn't look particularly positive out there. We have a global expectation that we need to get to net zero by 2030. And in some countries, it's 2035. But there have been various global agreements for this to happen. And corporations, governments, the Institute of Justice in Brussels, and various other institutions and climate activists and scientists have all been driving towards this particular movement for industry, organizations, leaders, and consumers to change the way that we consume. And that requires us to change our mindset in the process because we have these habits ingrained. We will go and buy things as we would normally do it because we're attached to that. There's a nostalgia associated with it. There are lots of different aspects. We don't want to give up that privilege that we've worked really hard to deserve. So there's a lot of change there. And then on top of that, all of that disruption is changing society as a whole. And that is creating a lot of unrest at work. It's creating unrest in schools. It's creating unrest, at the Thanksgiving dinner table, whereby just being able to create the kind of conversations that we need to create the level of, let's call it, equity that I think we're all looking for, to be heard and understood. That trifecta, as I like to call it, is a lot to deal with. And a lot of people will say to me, hey, Caroline, can't we just deal with one at a time? Not really, because they're all converging all at the same time. And we need to be able to see how we are interacting as individuals, interacting with that. So if you're a CEO, how are you interacting with that? How are you interacting with your team? How are you interacting with your consumers and all of the stakeholders? There's a lot going on there.
The problem is it's all happening so fast. I was talking to a psychology professor this morning. She happens to be my neighbor. Long story, but she studies these interactions. And one of the biggest problems that she sees right now is we're only fed the information that we want to hear. So if you don't want to believe in climate change, you don't have to, because there are a lot of people that'll say it's fake when data and science show that it's real. Right. And if you don't want to have to use AI, there are people that will say that's okay, but you're only going to really hurt yourself.
I am curious about when we're talking about changing our mindset. Let's give you the opportunity to change my mindset, Caroline. What would I be like after my mindset has been changed? What would be the difference between Richard now and Richard after a changed mindset?
You may not be prepared to hear this.
I'll do my best.
Okay. You're going to be happier. You're going to be happier. There are so many different scientists, psychologists that will say there's a lot of psychological proof out there. There's a lot of scientific proof, and a lot of environmentalists that will also say, if you're able to adapt your mindset to understand that, you're actually richer than you think internally, and you're able to see that where we are in society, in the world, in the environment, in the economy, where we are, we're actually really, I'm going to use the term blessed. We're fortunate we have our health. If we don't have our health, I know that that's a very different situation. And, if somebody's listening and they're saying, but I feel sick, I'm in constant pain from whatever, they're going to think I'm talking total and utter garbage. So, in the instance that, somebody is doing well, they're comfortable, they have an income, they're able to plot their way forward, that's a pretty happy life. A lot of Buddhists might speak in that particular way. But in general, the mindset shift would be there would be a centeredness, and it comes from understanding that what got you here requires us to reinvent ourselves quite significantly. And this is why I don't think anybody's going to really appreciate this or want to hear about it, which is that we have to, and this is my very first chapter, we have to do a mea culpa for what we have done and a mea culpa for what we're about to do.
We have to confess to past sins and confess to future sins.
Yeah, and we don't have to say that publicly. It can just be to ourselves, because sometimes, as you're in the legal profession, so you may not necessarily want to publicly announce those things. There may be consequences, and I don't want to put people in that situation. So I recommend then this is why I call it the inner work, or doing the work, as a lot of psychologists and therapists will say, which is to be able to say, okay, I have done all of these things. Like, for example, I've driven a gas guzzling car. I have had my air conditioning on for a whole week, and there's been nobody on in the house, or whatever. All of these things that may impact the earth or society, or that make us feel quite guilty in some way. So we're able to, okay, so how am I going to change the future? So you could look at the example of something really basic, like I left my air conditioning on for a week. You may do that, Caroline. I apologize, but I'm going to have to be accountable to myself, and I'm going to have to be more disciplined with myself and make sure I turn that off. So my carbon footprint is less, which means that global warming is less likely to happen. That's just a little shift. That's a behavioral shift. I'm not talking about, suddenly becoming a monk and going into, a monastery and, going through that kind of shift. We are, we have to live, we have to work, we have to be a part of society and things. But to be able to have those real moments of being able to sit down and go, okay, I need to make these shifts. So that's on a personal side. On a professional side, let's say you're the CEO. Mercedes CEO this week is behind and encourages decarbonization. And that means, from a decarbonization perspective, it's rewriting the rule book on how a car is manufactured, produced, distributed through the supply chains, and then ultimately it's brought to you, and essentially there's going to be a lower carbon footprint. If he was to do the mea culpa exercise, he would say, yes, we've done our part. Now we have to make dramatic changes, because we have these massive goals, and to make those massive changes, it's going to cause dramatic injury. And I'm thinking about your listeners right now, thinking, if they're truck drivers, they're going to think, hold on a second, why would I want my industry to be disrupted? Where am I going to get my finances from? Where am I going to get my revenue, my wages? So there's a lot to think about on that side. So we won't think about that side. But when we're talking about CEOs and leaders, which is what this book is about, they have to think about the impact their current decisions are going to have on future generations, because climate change, as you know from the data that we see from data scientists, in the news headlines, basically since 2023, the UN has said that we've got until 2030 to reverse this kind of hockey curve that's going up on the climate increase, which is causing the floods, the hurricanes, the freak weather conditions, and it's going to get worse.
We're with Carolina Stokes right now, and she's the author of AfterShock to 2030. You can find her at theforward.co, and we're having a really interesting discussion. I'd like to move the focus away from climate change right now and talk a little bit about artificial intelligence. So how does the mindset shift work then if we are trying to cope with the AI?
AI, as you know, is the most phenomenal tool. And we've been using, AI has been observing us for a very long time. We use Netflix. Our mobile phone has known us better than we've known ourselves for a very long time. But since ChatGPT came around in November, December 2022, the world changed so dramatically. So we know that this is a fact. We know that robotics are coming through. We know that farming is now becoming more, I want to say, roboticized. That's not the right phrase. But the fact is that we're using AI so much more there's a lot of talk about, certain generations or certain people not necessarily using critical thinking to be able to use AI in an effective way. They're taking the data, they're using it as gospel. They're then going down the path of using that data to make their life decisions without pushing back to AI, saying, hey, I think this might be wrong. How about thinking about it in this particular area? So that's where ChatGPT 5 is actually quite useful, because you're able to argue with it. There's a reasoning sense, which is more drawn out, but I think from a critical thinking perspective is actually more useful.
It almost feels like the advances in AI are helping us solve some of these other problems. Now we just have to get away from fossil fuels, but that may be something AI helps us do too, because it really is steering us in order to feed itself to, I think, these renewable sources. Do you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. It's going to get there, I think, faster than we can imagine. We look at the headlines again that AI is a climate disruptor in the negative sense, and I think I know that there's a positive aspect associated with that. You just have to look at what Moderna did, for example, when they were using AI to build their COVID solution, the vaccine, very rapidly. I'm not sure what Pfizer did, but this really smart people that are smarter than me, that's what they do tirelessly. They look at the data, they try and work out exactly how to move that forward, and they're looking at solutions. And I've also had conversations with people in the data center space, and how many are actually evolving from fossil fuels, diesel, and looking at regenerative sources. And the pace and scale of that, there's an urgency behind it, for the simple reason that the AI boom is booming faster than we can even imagine, because of our propensity. I'm going to use the term, which is going to be a little bit interesting, addiction to all of the fun things that we can do with AI, with Grok at the moment, with their Imagine. I mean, the people are sending me stuff on Imagine, and I'm thinking, hold on a second, guys, you're using up energy here. So I'm keeping silent, but at the same time thinking, if everybody's doing 5 to 10 of these videos a day because it's fun, how much energy is being used for that? A lot.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, hopefully, too, though, the content is helping people. And so society is getting an advantage by using this energy. We're talking with Caroline Stokes, and she is the author of AfterShock to 2030. We have to take a commercial break. Stay tuned for intellectual property news coming up soon, and secrets of the entrepreneurial mind. And don't forget to experiment. Oh, and don't forget to experience more of Passage to Profit by subscribing to us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube, or subscribing to our podcast anywhere you get your podcasts. Just look for the Passage to Profit Show on any of these platforms. Passage to Profit Show, right back after this.
Attention investors. This is a simple commercial on the investment value of gold. Gold continues to make new highs. In good markets and in bad markets, you need to have your portfolio balanced with gold. Learn about owning physical gold or getting a gold-backed IRA. Make this simple call right now.
800-653-2073. 800-653-2073. That's 800-653-2073.
Sponsored by Reagan Gold. We're offering a 100% risk-free gold guide. Gold continues to make new highs. And unlike stocks, gold has never been worth zero. You owe it to your nest egg and future to own some physical gold or set up a gold-backed IRA. Call right now for your free report.
800-653-2073. 800-653-2073. That's 800-653-2073.
Sponsored by Reagan Gold.
Do you love going on a cruise, or have you always dreamt on going on the cruise vacation of your life? With dozens of cruise companies, who do you call to find the right vacation and deal for you? Now you can make one phone call and shop all the best deals on every single cruise line in the world. You can't get that by calling one cruise line. We have them all, with experts that know the ins and outs of every cruise ship and can tell you the best cruise for your vacation needs. Our cruise packages start at $149. Plus, we offer free internet, free guest packages, and cash back deals. So now is your chance to book the cruise of your lifetime. Call the cruise hotline right now and shop every single cruise line in the world. Here's the number. 800-577-4742. 800-577-4742. 800-577-4742. That's 800-577-4742.
Now back to Passage to Profit. Once again, Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart.
And our special guest, Caroline Stokes, who has written the book AfterShock to 2030. And we're talking about how do we adapt to all the rapid change in the world with AI and climate change and everything else that's going on. And one question I wanted to ask her is, can you tell us a story about a CEO who is effectively using AI who will be the CEO of the future?
Mm. I love that question because CEOs will never say it out loud that they are using AI to support their evolution because they're too proud. I'll be direct about that, but I'll give you this example. So this story is about a CEO who, with me as their coach, became AI avoidant to AI curious and now an AI super user for the simple reason that when they were AI avoidant, I was working with them as their coach. And I said to them, so I'm seeing that you're in this freeze state. You're in CEO freeze mode, which is an avatar system that I have in the book. And in that freeze state, you're leading in this particular way. You're avoiding all of the hard to discuss things. You're deflecting decisions. You're avoiding all of these really important critical things that are actually going to, submerge your company. So why don't I play with AI with you so you can see how your behavior, your leadership behavior has been impacting your ability to lead. And I'm going to track for you what the various outcomes will be if you continue down this path. I provided that example, and just like that, he became AI curious. And he slowly and tentatively, week on week, started to get involved with the GPT and was able to see in the moment how his leadership was impacting other people. And then he got hooked. And I say that in an addictive way, but once you realize, and this is a neuroplasticity, habit forming realization that we all have, once we realize that something is actually going to help us move through something that has made us feel very stuck, we get this like a feeling of like a runner's high. You're able to evolve really, really quickly. So then and I'm not kidding you, within 3 months, this person became what I would term as a super user to be able to see how they could improve their presence in meetings, how they were able to communicate more effectively with people that they had issues with, that there was conflict with. They weren't able to communicate more effectively with.
So, how would you use Chat GPT or another AI platform to communicate more effectively with somebody if you were having an interpersonal issue? What kind of questions would you ask it?
So, first of all, your ChatGPT needs to have some kind of idea about who you are as a human, okay? Otherwise, you're going to be getting a real basic overview. And often, when you go to, let's say, Harvard Business Review, or you go to Fast Company and you see these, or you read a book and you'll see all of these different tools, we're unable to connect with how we're able to evolve. So that's the difference between reading a book and then interacting with GPT. So my hack for that, my big secret for this is that what you do, you put in whatever leadership surveys that you might have. That might include, may even include a Myers-Briggs. It may include emotional intelligence 2.0, overview, a report, a leadership circle report. You can upload those particular reports, or maybe actually do an overview with, or do a deep dive with ChatGPT to understand what your leadership style is. Maybe do some very, very quick and dirty, what I call radical listening with your team to say, hey, what would you like me to change? What would you like to see more of me? What challenges do you need me to solve in the next 6 months? And just feed all of that data into ChatGPT, and then say, let's have a coaching session to determine how I can communicate more effectively with these people that present their issues in this particular way. And you're then being coached in the moment. So when you go into that meeting, or you have that email or Slack session.
I mean, communication, though, is always two-way. We gear our conversation to the people that we're talking to, right? So we want to make sure that we can communicate. How does ChatGPT set it up so that it can kind of anticipate the audience or the person that you're trying to communicate with?
The great thing about ChatGPT is that if you, as a user of ChatGPT, you have some kind of understanding of some psychological terms and say, this person might be avoiding various issues right now. They may be overly stressed. The person that I have conflict with may be overly stressed. They have, family challenges. There's some health challenges going on. We are looking at the issues that are happening globally, and it's going to impact our supply chain. We don't have a runway for, our runway has been reduced. If you put all of those compounding issues together so that you can create that compassion and that empathy to create the right kind of prompts that the human, let's say the CEO, is able to create, then it works.
I'm going to start putting information about Elizabeth into ChatGPT. And this way, I'm going to be able to figure this out because I've been working on this for a while. I think I have the secret now.
Okay. You can use it for the law firm right now. Not all of the attorneys like to put their time in. In fact, most of them hate to put their time in, but they do it. But I think it would be interesting to do a
They do actually have a program now that will calculate your attorney's billable time for them and upload it if you want to do that. I haven't tried it. I have no idea whether it works.
GPT. Why do these guys hate putting their time in so bad? And how can I make it better? But maybe that's
There's a lot of issues there, let me tell you. But in any case, we're with Caroline Stokes. Thank you very much for this segment. It's been fascinating. Where can people find you?
People can find me on LinkedIn at Caroline Stokes and at theforward.co.
Well, now it's time for intellectual property news. And our topic today is, guess what? AI. And so we've been following a court case recently with Anthropic. In the first round of the case, the court decided that the use of copyrighted material was transformative enough to constitute fair use, which means that Anthropic, when it's creating its stuff through their program Perplexity, they're not violating anybody's copyrights. So phase two now of the trial, which is where Anthropic lost, was the court said that you uploaded all these copyrighted books, millions of them, off of a pirate website, and now you're going to have to pay the creators damages for taking their property without their permission or without paying them. So obviously, if they have to pay out to the creators, and it's potentially millions of creators here, that's going to be a pretty big chunk of money. And I think Anthropic is going to raise the price of Perplexity, right? How are they going to get that money back?
I just want to add here real quickly that I was researching some of this and I found that there are actually companies now, talk about your cottage industry springing up. There are companies now that will help you get paid by big AI for your content. And big AI is paying people, especially if it's private content, to use their content. So it's almost like going to a book editor in the olden days, Here's my content and they're using it, but they are paying people. So, and there are companies that will help you do that.
So maybe the system is improving from the content creator side, but the fact is if Anthropic or any of the other AI platforms have to pay money out, they may raise their price. So right now it's like $20 a month, and maybe to pay off all these people, they have to raise it to $100 a month.
They're going to raise the price no matter what, because what's happening is Google's going to Google Gemini.
So the question is to our panel, would you pay more money to make sure that creators get compensated for their content? Even $100 a month more.
Well, $100 a month is kind of steep, but if I was really serious about using it for business, yeah, but I don't know. But yeah, it's going to go that way anyway. They're going to charge more regardless. I would rather see the creators get paid some of that. Yes.
Okay. Anya, what do you think about this topic? Where do you fall?
I think for me, it's irrelevant that it's about creators, right or not. It's about that if I'm going to use a tool, what are my other solutions? And it's going to save me half an hour's time for my team to do some work. Is it worth $50 per month or not? Is it solving a real problem for me? And is it worth it for me to do that? And if it's not worth it, that means they couldn't find a good business model. They have to keep iterate it. Maybe they find other revenue stream from corporations or something. But end of the day, is how much value that the tool is going to bring to us.
Well, I think that's a very, very practical way to look at it. You're obviously an amazing businesswoman. Jeffrey, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, by scraping data in scientific applications, a lot of times you avoid the process of trying to figure out how to rigorously gather the data so that you can isolate variables so that it's not just garbage in and garbage out. So we try to use actual intelligence for AI. And the only way it saves us time is if we're trying to research something and we say, get us everything written on X, everybody who published something on this. And then we have to go look at it because the AI doesn't know what was done by an idiot or what the method they used was flawed or it was to do a study, a real scientific study to get a breakthrough, to prove anything is really, really difficult. To isolate the variable properly and get it's just hard. And you can't just scrape data off the daily racing form of every horse that ever raced and all there and expect to learn anything, for example. So the only way it's worth it to us is to gather it. And that saves time. If I can pay less money to somebody who can get me all that in a hurry, I'll pay for that. But I'm not going to pay for a lot of the data scraping because in my field, it's a waste. I can explain that in more detail later. It's a complete waste of time to scrape the databases about racehorses. They're so compromised.
Thank you for that. Caroline, what are your thoughts?
I expect it to go up. I mean, it's been Wild West. It's been a gold rush, and everybody's trying to get as much usage, or the AI creators have been working on getting as much usage as possible to ensure that their data models are able to run in the in the top leagues, and now it's a question of paying for it. I mean, Grok, for example, I'm in Canada, so I'm paying $500 a year for Grok. I pay 20 for ChatGPT. Would I pay more? Yeah. I mean, I'm with Anya, where if I'm able to do more in less time with that kind of reasoning and critical thinking and having a critical thinking thought partner, it's actually really good value.
I agree. I think it's a lot like the cable business. A long time ago, when cable was first introduced, you paid a monthly fee, but there were no advertisements, right? And the idea was to get everybody hooked on the service. And the same thing with the internet. You just paid a monthly fee. And gradually, the platform owners figured out ways to work advertising into the process. And I think the same thing is going to happen with the AI platforms. They're just getting us hooked on it now. They're keeping the barriers to entry low. And eventually, we're going to start seeing all sorts of ads that people are going to be paying for. It's just a matter of time. But great discussion. And if you have an idea or an invention that you want to protect, you can contact us at Gearhart Law. We work with entrepreneurs worldwide to help them through the entire process of obtaining patents, trademarks, and copyrights. And you can learn more about patents.com or learn more about trademarks.com for a free consultation, or download your free Entrepreneurial's Quick Guide to patents or trademarks, and also book a consultation with a Gearhart Law attorney. We'll be back soon. We have to take a commercial break, but we have Secrets of the Entrepreneurial Mind coming up soon, so stay tuned.
With MedGuard Alert, you're never alone. You can connect with medical professionals anywhere, anytime. And now MedGuard is introducing our exclusive new CareWatch. If you need help quickly, use it from anywhere to contact medical professionals. No cell phone required. The CareWatch is not only a life-saving medical alert device, it's a revolutionary health monitoring system that checks your blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen saturation, and much more. And here's the best part. If you have Medicaid, you may qualify to get your CareWatch for free. The CareWatch is only available through MedGuard Alert. Call us right now. We have monitoring programs starting as low as $1 a day. The call is free, activation is free, shipping is free, and no contract is required. Remember, with Medicaid, you may qualify to get your CareWatch for free. Call us to get your CareWatch right now.
800-705-1198. 800-705-1198. 800-705-1198. That's 800-705-1198.
Hey, listen to me. I'm one of the credit cards in your wallet. I'm about to explode and pop like a balloon. You're using me and my brothers way too much. Your credit cards aren't the only ones annoyed. It's your paycheck that doesn't have enough to pay everything. Save your credit cards, your paycheck, and yourself a lot of PAIN. Pain. Call the debt helpline now, not tomorrow, right now. Our experts will show you how you can cut your interest rates and your payments on your credit cards in half. Credit card companies have special assistance programs designed to help you. Make this 100% free call right now and learn how you could get out of credit card debt. Here's the number.
800-738-5332. 800-738-5332. 800-738-5332. That's 800-738-5332. Paid for by Zero Debt.
Passage to Profit continues with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart.
Passage to Profit is a nationally syndicated radio show heard in 38 markets across the U.S. We'd like to do a shout out to our affiliate in St. Louis, Missouri, KILS 590. Thanks for listening. And also, our podcast is ranked in the top 3% of podcasts globally. We've also been recently selected by FeedSpot Podcasters Database as a top 10 entrepreneur interview podcast. So subscribe to Passage to Profit Show on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and on the iHeart app. And now it's time for Elizabeth's update.
Yes, well, I have news that's very exciting to me and Richard.
And it came as a shock.
So right before COVID, I was starting a video directory of small businesses online, and it evolved. And I interviewed a bunch of people during COVID on Zoom. It was great. And I was having the website done and got bogged down with that. But in the meantime, I drafted a patent application.
So Elizabeth is a patent agent. So among her many skills.
So I did have help from people at Gearhart Law with the claims, which are, if you've ever looked at a patent, are the weird part. And we filed the patent application, and then I just left it in the hands of the Gearhart Law attorneys. And Richard, of course, and I were brainstorming back and forth about what else could go into this. And he put in a bunch of good ideas. So both our names are on the patent application. And we just found out that the patent was allowed. Yeah.
Yes, well, congratulations to us.
I announced it at our...
It'd be pretty bad if, as a patent firm, we didn't get it allowed.
Congratulations.
It would pretty much sink our reputation, don't you think?
And everybody was just like, yeah, so what? That happens every day.
Yeah, right. They're like, oh, big deal. But we were happy.
So that was our most exciting news. I'm still doing podcast and YouTube Creators Community Meetup. And the next one in September is online and in person. It's going to be really fun. We have Rob Greenlee, who's going to talk about ChatGPT 5, which I'm telling you, I am not so impressed with yet. Maybe I need to use it some more. And then we have Stacy Sherman, who's going to talk about customer experience. And in terms of podcasting and YouTube, do people like AI generated content better or human generated content better? Can they even tell the difference? Where's that going?
I'm sorry, but I think ChatGPT 5, the word is out on the street that it was a bomb. Nobody likes it.
Well, it's kind of weird to use. And well, I tried having
It has
generate
no
some
edge.
images.
It's like it's too nice or something.
No, it's not. I had tried to have it generate images last night and an image of Richard and me on this thing. And it gave me triple chins and added about 30 pounds. And then also we're going to have David Postolsky from Gearhart Law covering copyright. So, and then the studio, I'm getting more clients all the time. So that's pretty much my update. Now we're going to talk about the medical minute. And again, we're going to our friend AI. Can you hold AI and ChatGPT responsible for almost killing someone? This guy went online to ChatGPT to find some medical advice, and instead of using salt, it said, oh, you could use bromide.
What do you use bromide for?
Well, I don't know. We used it in chemistry lab years ago. I don't even remember what for, but it almost killed him.
So he went on a bromide diet or something, right?
He replaced salt with bromide somehow. I don't know what, he must some sort of bromide.
This is what ChatGPT told him to do.
Yes. So it says there's little indication tech companies will be made liable for the harm caused,
Of course not.
but doctors can be sued if they give you bad
Right.
information like this.
And that's just, this interesting point that doesn't come up too often with AI, and that is if there's a human behind it, they can be held accountable. So there's a real motivation to make sure you get it right. Whereas if it's just ChatGPT and it's shooting stuff off there, makes a mistake, oh, so what? But that guy nearly died.
Right. So for all of you out there, I love AI. I love ChatGPT and Perplexity and all the other ones, but it's a love-hate relationship because
Oh, yeah.
they put 30 pounds on me. So,
Well, when it works, it's great. But then you hear a story like that and you lose confidence.
so the guests have been waiting here patiently, and I'm really excited to hear from Anya Cheng next about Taelor Style. It's Taelor.style. This is like a really cool innovation in the fashion industry using AI and science. And so, welcome, Anya. Tell us all about it.
We use AI to pick clothes for busy men. So definitely not Richard. Richard's too fashionable, but
Look, I've got clothes that are 10 years old. They look great. And I don't, get me a subscription service that sends me a new pair of pants every decade. I'll be happy.
No, his suits are fine, but his weekend clothes could use a little help.
people tend to ask us, who are your biggest competitor? We say usually they are wives. So customer, they previously used wife to pick the clothes. I got the idea when I was working for Meta. I helped build Facebook, Instagram shopping, and I was head of product for eBay before. So when I was working in those big tech company as a woman with color, I felt a little bit imposter syndrome. I want to look great, but I realized most of fashion company, either you have to pick thousands of garments and you browsing through and you pick your own thing, or you have to own, which you just e-commerce you have to buy, and that means laundry, ironing, dry cleaning, and then tidying up every year. It's just lots of work. So it was an aha moment for me. Realize most of fashion company are designed for people who are into fashion, not for busy men or like me who are not into fashion but socially active. Getting a job, getting a date, close a deal. I don't care what I wear, but I care that I look presentable in the show. I look amazing in these deals, conversation. I look great when I teachings and all other stuff. So Taylor was born. With AI, we change like traditionally only Hollywood celebrity can have their stylist to pick clothes. Now everybody has AI as their personal stylist, and we ask their high-end way, but we don't use it a lot because most of the guys think they are taller and thinner. So they put the fact information in and definitely size small. No, 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 go to your closet. Oh my God, my favorite shirt is extra large.
Yeah, I've had that experience. This medium shirt doesn't fit anymore. It's only 15 years
Or
old.
being shrink for sure. It's not because I gained.
That's right. Blame it on the washer.
They don't have to buy these clothes, right?
Yeah, they don't have, in our model, they don't have to. It's rental, just like you get a Uber, someone get on the car. You get a library and you pick a book and you read it, you go back to the library, your Netflix show, you don't own this DVD. In our model, it's like rent a runway, you don't have to buy. But better than the rent a runway for women because then you don't have to pick. Our AI will pick for you. We specifically ask our customers go, which is what they care most. They want to have this outfit that close a deal, or this single guy that showcase their whatever body parts or best personalities. So we focus on the goal. And then you talk about the data points. We actually purchased two companies that have 10 years of styling data. We get their permission, we buy those data. They were human picked before when they style customer, and we fit into our AI. So then our module has unique data, but sitting on top of large language model like OpenAI. So as they grow, we grow, but we always one step ahead.
So if somebody returns clothes, I saw from the website, you have the option to buy the clothing if you really like it, but they return it. What happens after it's returned?
Just like airport rental car. You return, we wash them in 3 hours, ship to other people, like your dry cleaning business. But every time you pick is a different outfit. And the clothes are still very new, just like those airport rental car. Before it's too old, it gets sold. On average, renting 3 times, the item already sold to the customer. And when people buy, it's a second hand, so good for the environment, but you don't have to spend the entire afternoon to go to a trash store.
I assume they're inspected. So if I were to like spill a chocolate shake on my shirt or something, that would ever happen, then you would pick it out, and if you couldn't clean it, you wouldn't send it out, right?
Yeah,
Obviously.
we are almost like professional dry clean business, right? So anything that dry clean can clean, we no problem. But if it's really you cut off one short because went to Vegas and you were too drunk, then of course we charge you. Given that we are a subscription, so we have customers credit card. Say around $100 per month, customer can wear like 10 clothes per month, and then they return again next 2 months, so they don't have to do any shopping or laundry.
And what kind of brands do you have?
Yeah, we work with over 150 brands. all of name brands, you name it, Marine Layer, Johnson & Murphy, Bonobos, that all major brands that you're aware of. But we also source globally the best brand. They are not yet available in the US. So brands in Italy, it might be number one over there, but they haven't entered US market. Now they get, instead of burning those unsold inventories or the latest collection they want to test for new market, we get those inventory and then enter the market. So then we hope to solve the problem that 30% of clothes go directly from factory to landfill, generating 10% of carbon emission for the world. But at the same time, they also send us the latest collection that's not yet in the market because they want to know customer feedback. So our customer get both of those inventory. They are high quality, but may not be available in the US.
That sounds really cool to me.
Yeah, that sounds great. We're with Anya Cheng from Taelor, spelled Taelor, a new way to use and experience clothing. So, where did you come up with the idea for this?
I was working for this big tech company and realized that I need this type of thing. We start testing of different customers. And so when we launched just a landing page for just see if people join the wait list, you mentioned about how the challenge is start a company. Like, what do you get? How do you get your first customers? So we launched this landing page, and then there was one day a guy emailed me, say, "Hey, can you bump me back to the wait list? I have been on there for 1 month." I thought he's a scam. I ignore him. Who really want is nobody websites that really want the service. And then a month after that, he called me. Hi. Somehow he added me on LinkedIn and I accepted and he found my phone number. He said, I'm a real estate agent in San Diego. I really like the brochure on your website. I've been waiting for 2 months. You must be really popular. No, we had nothing. We just haven't launched yet. You must be really popular. Can you please bump me out to the wait list? I want the service. We realized he's a real customer. We went to the store. It was during Christmas promotions. So, but a whole bunch of things from Macy's, went to post office and shipped it to the guy. He became our first customer. And from there, we're testing 100 people like these, and we learn a lot. We know what's needed. We realize we need an AI to pick in clothes. We need to work with fashion brands. We can work with them to revenue share model and provide insight to help them to do better jobs. We realize we will need some others like the operational stuff. And with a business plan, we start raising, and that's how we raised $2 million 2 years ago.
That's awesome. So, could a young man who had just graduated college, say, and was going to start maybe at a marketing company in New York, his first job, is that kind of your ideal client? So he comes to you, he says, "Hey, I'm starting this new job at a New York marketing company. I have no idea what to wear." Would you be able to help him?
For sure. I think our customers are guys who are socially active. They are either single guys, salespeople, consultant, pastor, recruiter, professors, and lawyer. Not lawyer. We work with actually many law firm and also legal associations. People who are people facing, but they don't have time, or they don't have like strong fashion sense, and they don't want to read GQ and research on it. If you're using analogy of a cleaning company, we are not selling cleaning supply. We are selling the main service. Our customer really treat us more like the gadget guy behind the superhero, like, hey, you are ready to go, or just like executive assistant. So they ask us, okay, I wear these good clothes. Do you sell shoes, accessory, Valentine's Day gift? Where do I do my haircut? So they really see us more of like car service for them.
So, Anya, you grew up in Taiwan, is that right? So, how did you get from Taiwan to the United States? And how did you start your business career in a new country?
Yeah, I is from Taiwan originally. I went to Northwestern University to get my marketing degree, and I graduated in 2008 when Lehman Brothers went bankruptcy. There was no job anywhere. So my only job before I came to the U.S. was a reporter. So I was way outside of other departments, like schools departments. And then as soon as their hiring the recruiters came out, I would deliver my resume, just like the reporter hand over the microphones, like, hey, this is my resume. I'm a student from marketing department, which I didn't even get the campus recruiting possibility. So this is my resume. And nobody talked to me. When people say this is too dumb, you shouldn't ambush recruiters. You should like actually networkings. So I start knocking on every single department's professors the door networking. I kind of know those people. I pay tuitions, right? So I knock on every single door, no matter he or she knows me a lot or not. And one day there was a professor. He said, "I don't know you. I cannot get you any job. But tomorrow I have amazing talk from Richard, Marissa, and that's you can is a panel that you can come and talk to the speaker." So I went. My English was so poor I couldn't understand anything, but I still said, "This is amazing talk. Here's my resume." So the CEO is a Farmers Magazine company. She invited me to an interview in her company. I went on the interview. It was a perfect job, a marketing job in a magazine company for someone who had a reporter media background. 2 weeks went by. I called a recruiter. She says, "Stop calling me. I am laid off." Even the recruiter was laid off from the company. "Since you have nothing to do you want to come out and grab a coffee?" She said, "Sure, I have nothing to do." We had a coffee. She told me a lot about the company, who was their competitors, who was their customers. And she told me one idea. "Have you heard of New York? New York is a bigger city than Chicago. Bigger city has more job. LA is a bigger city. So these are bigger cities. You should give it a try." So I went on a trip for 2 months, sleep on different friends' couches every week. I list 2,000 alumni from the school, and I start approaching, calling those people. And then one day I bought all the newspaper from the newsstand because he always say, "Publisher name so and so, Marissa and Richard, and if you want advertise, call this number." So I start calling each of them, and eventually I actually met with the CEO of New York Times and VP of CNN, but nobody was hiring. And I thought this is a great opportunity, but it's too slow. So I want to go to a conference, which you need ticket and really expensive. So I call a magazine company in Taiwan, say, "I want to cover this amazing news in New York. Is it okay for free?" They said, "Okay." I call the conference, "Hey, I'm a reporter from Taiwan. Can I get into the press tickets?" So then eventually it was still get me with a whole bunch of people, but no one was hiring. I went back to Chicago, was ready to pack and go home back to Taiwan. But I actually learned a lot in those 2 months. So I put together a business plan based on what the layoff the recruiter told me, what their competitors say, and then I build out that this if you want to do this type of thing that New York Times is doing, it would be great to hire someone who have some marketing background and probably not very senior, so you don't need to pay a lot. And I happen to know someone. Her name is Anya Cheng. And would you like to hire that? And she asked me, my English was really bad. She asked me, "Do you want to be a contractor?" I said yes. I didn't know what contractor means. Went home and I Googled contractor. I didn't know why she want me to be a plumber. But that's how I got my first job in the US.
That is an amazing story, and I really admire your drive and determination. And it's tough to find a job, especially when you're just starting out. You don't have a lot of experience during a difficult economy, but you did it. And then after that job, it seems like you've worked with some pretty prestigious companies, Meta and Target, McDonald's, right? All of those in marketing positions.
Yeah, I started in marketing. It's actually data scientist in marketing, and then Sears come to me say, "Hey, this is for media company. You guys know how to do media buying. How about you do media selling? How about you do some media buying?" And then when I was doing that, I realized the best media will be using data, just like Jeffrey. Like really how to predict racing horses is probably data. So then I get into the data scientist space. And then get into Target. Target say, "Hey, you are doing these things. Would you like to be helping us here? But you have to come to Minnesota." So my dream at the time was working in Silicon Valley because as a leader in the tech teams seems a perfect match. But the Minnesota opportunity, I still say yes. So I told them that, "Hey, if you one day have opportunity, I really want to move to San Francisco." A week before I was on board, they call me. They say, "Hey, you mentioned about this before, and your boss position was an opening, and now we found a guy. He actually lives in San Francisco. He doesn't want to move to Minnesota, so you can work for him in San Francisco. So sometimes opportunity is there when you a little bit open to when opportunity is not perfect.
Yeah.
And my mom said Target is great, but I never heard of it back in Taiwan. So I joined my global business. And by learning using something that I know of technology, but learning something new, which is a global thing. Yeah.
Caroline, do you have any questions for Anya?
Anya, I want to say your hero journey or heroine's journey is amazing, and the hustle absolutely outstanding. And if everybody had an ounce of that hustle to get what they needed to do, it'd be absolutely amazing. I think my question is, you blend tech and a consumer or a customer need really, really nicely. What was your aha?
Yeah, I think when we started, we thought we are selling clothes. But quickly we realized we are not. We are selling a dream, a chance to succeed. Our customers don't care what they wear, red or blue, as long as they get a girlfriend or boyfriend, right? So it's actually a selling a chance to succeed. That's what the customer really buying. It's about the convenience. Or when we started, we thought for international for fashion brand, the best thing will be monetizing their unsold inventory. They burn out this inventory anyway. But quickly we discovered that's not true. They care even more so about the data, which is the insight. Oh, your pants is 1 inch too short. That's why most of Americans are not buying your pants. That actionable insight is actually a lot more valuable than monetizing the old inventory because they help them to be successful for their next collections. So understanding of what real value that we deliver, I think this is how we were able to grow. And now we got investors from like Spotify, TikTok, Hello Kitties, and Founder View too.
Yeah, congratulations. I mean, it's approaching the problem from a lot of different angles and solving problems for different people in the whole thing. But this has been fascinating, and I'll be showing Richard that website.
I don't need any fashion help. No,
Yeah, that's
I'm
Taylor
good.
style. Taeor style. So Richard,
Yeah, Taelor.style. Yeah, yeah. Anyway.
use a code podcast 25 to get 25% off. Like
Oh, there
podcast
you
25.
Podcast 25 to get 25% off. That's a deal.
That's right.
So, so maybe that's one of your birthday presents. You never know. So that was really fun.
Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart.
So now we are diving into just the glamorous world of horse racing with Jeffrey Sedler. And I'm just so excited to hear about this. It's eqb.fyi. Equine Biomechanics and Exercise Physiology. That's his website. Okay, Jeffrey,
What the heck is that?
take it away, Jeffrey.
I wonder what Anya could do for Columbo. That was always kind of my hero, was the guy who looked like he was shuffling in with looking like a homeless person, and he always caught the genius criminal that nobody else could nail. I was really interested in her persistence. That kind of reminded me some of my own. I spent the first 20 or 25 years, and I had to have day jobs. I was successful. We had invested millions of dollars in the research, and nobody gave a damn, and nobody believed in it until we finally, after like 25 years, somebody finally gave us a try, and we were very successful. And so we built it from there. But I mean, it was the data that existed was useless. I started out, I was so young, and I worked with the beginnings of the Olympic Sports Medicine Committee when we were afraid in 1976 the East Germans bursting into all the medals, supposedly with mad scientists in kindergartens and things. And I learned a lot. And I learned that the elite athletes were as different in their data as normal is from injured. That's how much the elite were different. And so you had to get data from them. You couldn't just use the databases that existed out there. And I thought, my God, we have to do that in horses where nobody's done anything like that. It's all eyeball and intuition. And we weren't interviewing the parents at the Olympics for tryouts, so we didn't use pedigree. And but the whole industry was built around it. It was all fads, and some horses that were in fads got the best of everything, and so they succeeded, and others were dealt with by idiots, so they didn't succeed.
So your company attempts to try to predict what horses are going to be the best horses. Is that
We only before they ever race when they're youngsters. We have unique databases built over 30 years. So we know the difference in the physical attributes and the way they move and in the thickness of the left ventricle of their heart and things like that. We had to develop the machinery to get that data. It didn't even exist. We built the first portable ultrasound machine you could go into so we could go into a stall and do echocardiography on a race heart. So we should have patented that. We have other patents. So we built these databases and then we studied them and, we found stuff that was predictive of performance. Most of it's not related to pedigree. And the entire industry is built around pedigree, the values. So
Well,
we were
that's
outsiders and industry disruptors big time.
I think that's how humans are too. Pedigree doesn't always matter in how smart you are, right? But I wanted to ask you, so you developed this program, like massive method for predicting winners from the time they're born practically. Are you selling your services to people to help them pick their horses to raise as racehorses? Or are you giving them the software? How are you monetizing that?
No, what we did was the way we monetized it was we couldn't give away the data. It cost too much and the complexity.
Right.
So we would use it for them. We would go to the auctions and to the farms and go through thousands and thousands of these young horses and find which ones to buy. And then in the management of them, we learned about the management of the racehorses, which ones were good on the grass or the dirt or the mud, who could go long and who would go short. I got some great stories about that. You can have a horse that never got a chance to do what it's really good at. They don't realize it could have been a world champion. I had a few of those. I switched them over. So that's what we did. But mostly the industry was really hostile.
Why do you think that was? I guess part of horse racing is the mystique. There's sort of a mystique with horse racing and kind of an art, I guess. And people don't want to change that. But it's also about making money, right? And if you have a
No, not really. No, I just came from an auction where they had 15 yearlings went for more than $1 million, and most of them will earn nothing and be lousy. And they could have used technology instead of buying the one $3 million yearling. They could have bought like 20 horses, each of which would probably be profitable, but they don't do it because it's not fashionable and it doesn't make them a big shot. It's a very strange industry. It's an irrational industry, and it's caught in 300-year-old methodologies. And the value of all these huge farms, these huge industries, all based on what's going to be debunked within the next 10 years, this pedigree stuff. And it's wild.
yeah.
So anyway, probably me. I mean, I was arrogant. I had 3 degrees from Harvard and I was a smart guy. At least I thought I was. Although I also worked with leading trainers, Hall of Fame trainers at MIT, but I just couldn't get any business until finally I made a presentation to one old guy in Kentucky. And he said, give me one recommendation. He had 200 horses. He was a leading stable. And I had been losing money forever. And I said, you don't understand. It's a whole system and you have to manage it and you have to do this and that. He said, no, just give me one recommendation. So I went through his 200 horses and I recommended he put one young horse he had that hadn't won a race in one of the most prestigious, most important races in the world, a much later. And he burst out laughing, but he did it and it worked. The thing is, in horse racing, when you see a horse running up the stretch in the dirt and he's passing everybody, he's generally not speeding up. He's slowing down the whole race. He's just slowing down less than the rest of them. And the fatigue curve, the velocity decay, fits a logarithmic curve that's pretty much specific to each horse. And we got that from swimmers in the Olympics. So you can extrapolate out that fatigue curve from short distances to see what their time would be for longer distances. And so there was this horse was slow, but he didn't slow down. So his extrapolated time in this won the Belmont Stakes, which is one of the long horses. None of the horses that had ever run that far. It was a mile and a half. So it's a real test. And you don't know how they're going to be able to do it. And this horse was getting trounced at 3/4 of a mile. And so I said, Dennis Little, he'll be right there. And so I went, and the night before the Daily Racing Form and the articles where they said this horse is good for this reason, and this pedigree's terrific, he'll go long, and blah, blah, blah. And then there's the jokers and the idiots, and that was us. And they never apologized. And then, I get there, and the Hall of Fame trainer's there, and he's telling the press it's not his fault. The owner's making him do it, and blah, blah, blah. So I'm thinking this is either going to be, ecstatic or catastrophic. And so they get in the gate, and of course he comes out last out of the gate, and he's trailing the field because he's slow. About halfway through the race, he starts to catch up to the pack. About 3/4 of the way he's there, and he's passing horses. And by the end, he's flying, and if it was another 2 strides, he'd have won. And just to prove it wasn't a fluke, a month later, he was in $1 million race in Louisiana Super Derby, and he did the same thing again. So I was right. So then
So that owner was pretty happy with you.
yeah, though having a worthless horse, it was by his new stallion. He was trying to promote out of the first crop of that new stallion. He had a classic multiple graded stakes placed horse. And so then the next year I bought him like 3 horses, and one was in the Kentucky Derby low odds. The next year I did it again. So at that point, I got a call from a guy from Egypt who had not been in horse racing, and he wanted to hire us to do a $40 million project. And so away we went. And then within 3 years, spending a fraction of what his competitors did. He was a leading stable in the United States, and we had the first Triple Crown winner in 37 years.
What was that horse's name?
American Pharaoh.
Oh, okay.
And in the New York Times, the night before, it was on the front page center of the New York Times the day before he did Triple Crown. And there was a whole story. If you turn in there, you'll see my picture. And they always had a quote of the day in the New York Times. And the quote of the day that day was from me, and it was, "Sell your house, don't sell this horse." The Egyptian pound, and they had Arab Spring, and the Egyptian pound was devalued 50%, and his businesses with the army there were going to hell. So he had selling the horse in Saratoga. And we'd done it, and so I had to go to him and say, "Please, please, please, please don't." So he bought it back for $300,000, and it ended up worth about $50 million.
Wow.
Still, if you ask people on my website, eqb.fyi, I list all these horses we bought, how much we paid for them, what they did. You can verify it all with third-party sources. You can call up the owners and stuff. I have, if you look at that record, nobody can match that record. Big racing day and ask everybody who the hell I am. I guarantee you they must have had no idea who we are or what we do.
Yeah. What about predicting outcomes in average races?
I got called Dogzilla. My name is Dogzilla in the betting world with some of the big wagerers, where I did some of that for him. Especially if the guy bought the horse that had never run long and he was stretching out, we would use those velocity decay logarithmic extrapolated curves to see what their time was going to be. Or if we saw something in the film that was a problem with a horse, when we filmed it at 500 pictures a second and we could correct it. We even had one horse where they'd hang up hay in a bag at the stall, and he ate the hay out of the bag, and he got it up his nose, a big piece of hay like this long, a stem, right? Nobody knew what was wrong with him, so they called, "Oh, well, come look at our." We looked at the first thing we did was do a full blood exam, and they looked up there and they put this endoscope in, and they go all the way down and look at the larynx. So we said, "No, don't do that. Pull it back out and let's look at the whole area." And there it was. So we pulled out this thing like this long. And then in the next race, we all bet on it, and it won by a mile. It had lost. So the stewards called us in, and they said, "What the hell did you guys do?" So we showed them the picture of what came out of its nose. Some of it's simple.
So the moral of the story is, they're going to race a horse, check its nose before it goes out on the track.
The management is everything. And I also tell another story at Hialeah 40 years ago.
So, but before you do that, I'd like to give Carolyn a chance to ask a question. So, Carolyn, do you have any questions for this amazing guy?
So many questions. My goodness. So Jeffrey, should I call you Jeffrey or Dogzilla?
Prefer Dogzilla.
Okay, Dogzilla. So in terms of what you do with your Harvard degrees and all of that kind of stuff, what advice would you give people that are trying to get through this new era to, for the long game so they can run long?
Well, if you're an entrepreneur, presumably you're creating something new. And if you're looking at data, my secret was to ask people, how do you know? That simple question. I went to the luminaries and the trainers and the veterinarians and the owners, and they would tell me everything, and then I would quietly try to get in there. How do you know? And I usually found out they had no idea where they made it up or they got it from somebody. To make the money, I had to spend $7 million in research. I had to earn it somewhere. And I did turnarounds, and I completely rebuilt companies. I figured out used data before there were PCs. I was in the census data, figuring out how to turn around some chain of department stores in Los Angeles, 40 stores and stuff. And I was using census data to try and figure out what it was that they were good at, right? And they were always trying to do something they weren't good at, and what was successful and what wasn't successful in their stuff. I just didn't believe what they told me. I had to go to the source data. I think that's what I tell people. Ask, how do you know, if you're trying to invent something, and probably if you go really, really find out how to know those things, you'll get a new product.
Great advice. Yeah, we're totally into data, and I shouldn't probably bring this up, but I have to constantly pound on the attorneys at Gearhart Law to give me marketing data. It's like, how did we get that client? Where'd they come from? But
It's important. Yeah.
you don't have the data, you can't make informed decisions. And I think
We named our world champion informed decision. It had the slowest workout at the auction, and the more faster they go, the more they sell for. And we bought this horse for a big stable, and it became the sprint champion of the world. And it was the slowest workout at the auction. They said, "How the hell did you know?" I said, "Because I look at how they go fast, not how fast they go." And I knew it was a phenomenal athlete.
wow. Jeffrey Dogzilla Cedar.
Horse racing, we have fun, and I live on a farm, and we have baby horses. I love it. I do what I love.
Are
I
you
love
still
that.
near Phil? Are you still near Philly?
I'm 45 miles west of there near when we were to Lancaster.
Next time Richard and I drive by, we want to go out and
Oh, yeah. Come
hear
me.
the rest of your stories.
Anyway, I got one more story I want to tell you about racehorses. So
Okay.
it was 40 years ago. This is really important. At Hialeah, and it was a normal race. And normally the horses at the end of the race are stretched out like a quarter of a mile from the horse's last to the horse's first, or an eighth of a mile at least, up the stretch. And they're coming around a turn, getting ready to come up the stretch. And somehow a collie, a dog, got out on the racetrack and chased them. And they all ended up in a tight little bunch. You could have thrown a blanket over all 10 of them at the finish line. And I never forgot it. I said, oh my God, that's what happens when they're all trying. That we had to try and figure out. We had to find ways to find which animals were dominant, which is also important. Because some of the races are decided in the starting gate by the horses. Sounds silly, but it's true. And also, like, I bought one horse. He was in this huge field of yearlings, like, I don't know, 30, 40 yearlings. And they all had short tail from biting each other's tails. And there was one with a long tail. Nobody messed with his tail. And we bought him, and he was a fighter. We named him Club Fighter.
Wow. Well, I would love to hear more of these stories. We're kind of out of time for today, but this has just really been fascinating. So this has been Jeffrey Sedler, and his website is eqb.fyi. And if you're in the market for a horse or just want to know more about this stuff and how data applies to horse racing, go on his website and take a look.
We even give away a lot of data on the website. We have scientific papers on like 12,000 horses over 10 years and all kinds of stuff, page after page, and we just give it away to show them it's not our opinion. We're actually data-based.
So we're going to take a commercial break. Stay tuned. We have Secrets of the Entrepreneurial Mind coming up shortly. You're listening to Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart.
I am a non-attorney spokesperson representing a team of lawyers who help people that have been injured or wronged. If you've been involved in a serious car, truck, or motorcycle accident or injured at work, you have rights, and you may be entitled to money for your suffering. Don't accept an offer you get from an insurance company until you talk to a lawyer. And we represent some of the best personal injury lawyers you can find. Tough lawyers that will fight to win your case. And they're so good they stake their reputation on it by only getting paid if you win. So if you've been in a serious car, truck, or motorcycle accident or hurt on the job, find out today for free what kind of compensation you may be entitled to. Call the legal helpline right now.
800-492-7014. 800-492-7014. 800-492-7014. That's 800-492-7014.
It's Passage to Profit.
Now it's time for Noah's retrospective.
Noah Fleischman is our producer here at Passage to Profit, and he never stops trying to make sense of the future by looking at the past.
An entrepreneur needs to be ready for anything, especially success. My mother could have told you about that. It was over 60 years ago that she and some friends of hers decided to open up a small night spot in Brooklyn. The big question was, how do we advertise our opening? The leader of the pack said, well, we'll take out a newspaper ad for a week. My mom said, no way, that's way too expensive, and I have a much better idea. We're going to create a trendy ad on a piece of paper. We're going to Xerox about 1 trillion of these things, and then we're going to hire a couple of young kids to hand these out to people outside the subway station as they come home at night for about 3 weeks straight. He said, are you kidding? They're not going to keep those ads or even retain them. They're just going to toss them. Well, when those folks tossed them, the ground was decorated with ads for the opening of this new night spot for at least 3 weeks. On opening night, they had a line outside the place 5 blocks long. It was a crazy night, but it was a great one. When you're an entrepreneur and you're starting up a business, you got to be ready for everything and anything. Think outside the box and be ready for that box when it opens.
Now more with Richard and Elizabeth. Passage to Profit.
And our special guest today has been Caroline Stokes. We also had Anya Cheng and Jeffrey Sedler, otherwise known as Dogzilla. Now it is time for Secrets of the Entrepreneurial Mind. So Caroline, what is a secret you can share with our audience?
Well, I want to give you a secret for everybody to get their head around ChatGPT 5. I'm hearing the word on the street that people aren't that happy right now. So my secret for that is ask ChatGPT how you can improve, and to ask for ChatGPT to give you a 90-day program on how you can evolve your critical thinking and how to create a better relationship to create the outcomes you want out of ChatGPT 5.
Wow. I love that. And if you want to see Caroline's website, you can go to theforward.co. Okay. Anya Cheng with Taelor.style, Taelor.style. What is the secret you can share with our audience?
Yeah, I have a social media post that is not, pictures that I'm on a business class with a champagne. The copy is about it's amazing trips in New York and meet such amazing investors and founder and such love my journey, entrepreneurship journey. The behind the thing of the pictures was that I was in New York raising money for the company. I slept on friends' couches for multiple different days. It was heat wave, 100-degree. I wear the high heel with a whole bunch of the pop-up banner for the evening's conference and hop on the trains. When I hop on the train, the moment I realized I was on the wrong side, get off and run over the other side, got on the train, and then electricity went off because it was heat wave and stuck on the train for like 3 hours. Eventually get to the New Jersey's and the guy didn't show up. In the next meeting, the restaurant was electricity went off again because the heat wave again. So we were talking in the candles with 100-degree with sweatings. And then when I back to the hotel for the dinner, I realized I signed up for a room plan because it's cheaper for the ticket. So I actually was not allowed for any meal of the 3 days. So I couldn't eat anything. Things go on and on just like for 3 days. And eventually the last days and I was in the meetings and was meeting change all the business cards. And I realized that the lunch went by so quickly. I realized I didn't eat anything when I back to my seats. So the person next door was very kind and put all of the noodles in those to go like Chinese box for me. I went to the airport. It was again heat wave so electricity went off. So wait in the line for 2.5 hours to check my bag and the flight was gone. So I went back to the line and wait for another 2 hours to rebook my flight. When it's my turn, they say, sorry, you have to rebuy the flight. And I start crying. I realized this was totally not my day for the last few days. And I went back to my friends and begging him to please allow me to stay in your living room one more night. And next day morning, I went to an airport waiting like 4 o'clock in the morning for standing by because they say there's the only flight they might have a chance to stand by. And eventually, I got on the last one more seat, which was a business class. So people, the secret is that when people glamorous in their startup life, don't believe it. There.
That was awesome. Jeffrey Sedler, Dogzilla, website eqb.fyi. What is a secret you can share?
My secret is you want to do this. You want to be the entrepreneur, and especially in a new area, break in something where you're going to be a disruptor. You better be prepared for grueling time, money, work. If you bruise easily, forget it. And you better love it. I did it because I loved it. I'll tell you how I got started. I was 26 years old. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do with myself. And I went on a blind date on a rental to rent horses with this girl. And instead of falling in love with the girl, I fell in love with the horse. I went crazy and I was taking lessons and I bought a horse. I was, how can I make a living doing this? And when I finally rented a farm and put my horse on my farm, I threw open my arms and said, Tony, we're living together. And I meant it. It was a big deal. Meanwhile, I was taking this Harvard Business School and Harvard Law School at the same time. And I had to do a thesis and it was like March and I hadn't done it. So I had to go into my advisor and it was Archibald Cox, the big guy from the Midnight Massacre with Nixon, the famous lawyer. And he was a famous guy. He's a big Harvard dad. I had to go in and he's in his stacks. So you go through a bazillion rows of books in the middle of nothing in this huge building. And there's this desk near a window. And I sit down and he says, well, how's the thesis coming along? And I'm kind of looking at the floor and he says, oh, he got the picture right away. He says, well, what are you interested in? And I looked at the floor again and I said, horses. And I thought he was going to throw me out. And he turns around, takes this big book off the back of the shelf and he drops it on the desk and the desk goes up. And he says, this is the book that the statute that governs horse racing in Massachusetts. Nobody has ever looked at it here in Harvard. I want you to do it. And I did. And I said, that's where I'm going. I'm going into racing. And I'm too big to be a jockey. I don't have any money and I'm too old and I'm not connected. But I was pre-med at Harvard, so I have scientific stuff and I have business stuff. And I'm going to change it. It's not going to all be the same way it was 300 years ago. And then I started on this, what probably was a ridiculous journey. It took 20 years. It was of poverty and working day jobs. I was taking data. I had it on big discs. I was going up to New York because a buddy of mine who was from Harvard was a doctor at the hospital at Mount Sinai, and I would go up with this huge disc at midnight and go. He would get me on their computer, and I would run everything on, and then by 7 a.m. I was off and out. It was like her, like Anya. I was like crazed. We invented stuff. We finally got a break, and God, thank you, God, that horse did what we thought he'd do.
That's great. Jeffrey, you've got a lot of podcasting in you. You could start your own podcast. Anyway, Richard Gearhart, what's your secret you can share?
I would say one thing that's really important for entrepreneurs, even when they're first starting out, is to stay current. So I think one of the challenges I faced when I was starting Gearhart Law was with all of the things going on, I found it challenging to stay on top of the latest trends, technology, law cases, all of those things, especially on the accounting side. I did not keep my books quite the way they needed to be kept. But I do think that even if you're starting out, you're at the early stages, you've got way too much to do and not enough time, it's worth it to spend a little bit of time every week just staying current in your industry and staying current with other things that are going on, because you're going to have to be aware of that technology or that trend in order to steer your business in the right direction. Fortunately, it gets easier as you go along and you have more resources, but I think it's really important when you're starting out too.
Yes, very well said. Well, I'm going to go in the weeds a little bit because we do this every week. So I'm going to talk about marketing and videos. And before the show, I looked for each of these three guests on YouTube and I found videos of each of them. And I'm not the only one doing this. So I feel like if you're a serious business person, you need to have at least one video of yourself out there on YouTube or somewhere on your website, wherever it is, of you speaking. And the other thing that you have to do with those videos too, for ChatGPT and the other search engines, is you have to transcribe them. And there's software that will transcribe them. And there are a couple different ways you can handle those transcripts. They have to be online and visible to the search engines. And those are really going to help you define your brand. And I think if you pair that with Caroline's exercise of putting everything about yourself in there and asking how you can improve, ChatGPT is going to see that. And when people ask about you, that's the stuff that's going to come out. So anyway, video and transcriptions.
Passage to Profit is a nationally syndicated radio show appearing in 38 markets across the United States. In addition, Passage to Profit has also been recently selected by FeedSpot Podcasters Database as a top 10 entrepreneur interview podcast. Thank you to the P2P team, our producer Noah Fleischman, and our program coordinator Alicia Morrissey, our studio assistant Risikat Busari, and our social media powerhouse Carolina Tabares. Look for our podcast tomorrow anywhere you get your podcasts. Our podcast is ranked in the top 3% globally. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and on our YouTube channel. And remember, while the information on this program is believed to be correct, never take a legal step without checking with your legal professional first. Gearhart Law is here for your patent, trademark, and copyright needs. You can find us at gearhartlaw.com and contact us for a free consultation. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week.